Larry, I have another podcast, and it's actually my passion project. It's called It's Quite a Living. It's about my friends in high places. And I'm thinking, now that I've actually researched you as my friend, I might have to have you do an episode of that too.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, pretty impressive. We've been friends for about 20-something years now.
Yes.
In full transparency. And, I kind of know your history as we know our friends' resumes a little bit. But when I went to research this after all the success you've had with Rung-UP, and I thought, Larry would be a pretty good guest on Insider Interviews, I was kind of like, holy cow.
To get a holy cow out of that is great.
Yeah. Holy cow. Pretty impressive. So I want to tell you why you're here.
Good. That would be helpful.
You have no idea. You just hopped on this call with me, so I appreciate it. Hey, it's E.B. Moss, and this is episode 13 of Insider Interviews. Today, I'm speaking with Lawrence M. Kimmel, Larry Kimmel. He's very well regarded as a marketing thought leader. He led one of the world's leading direct interactive agency networks and was the head of the Direct Marketing Association. He's been called King Prophet, and Chief Marketer magazine called him a rock star. Larry's keynoted at quite a few events, won quite a few awards, and now he's doing his own thing. He started his own agency called Rung-UP in 2015, and he'll explain why he calls it the first C2C agency. Here's Larry. So we kind of brought you in the side door of this episode. I'm actually speaking with the former chairman and CEO of one of the world's largest direct digital agencies. It's Lawrence M. Kimmel. For those who haven't known him perhaps for 20, 25 years like me, you can call him Larry too, though. Larry, you ran Gray Direct. You were at Draft. You were the prior CEO of the world's largest marketing association, the DMA. So, that's definitely the holy cow kind of stuff. You started Rung-UP, which is a boutique agency. Excellent stuff. I love what you've been doing there. And, because you are my friend in high places, I wanted to have you share some of that knowledge here on Insider Interviews.
That's very exciting. I'm happy to do that, and I'm even happier to be your friend.
Good answer. Good answer. We're off to a good start. So let's start with a little bit about your path. Then we'll talk about Rung-UP, but then I really want to concentrate on a lot of the meat that you can share with the audience. You have such institutional knowledge, if you will, about the whole industry. And things have changed so much that we're going to do a little brain dump and download.
My background is big agency. As you said, I ran the Gray Direct Global Network as chairman CEO for a decade. And then I went on to run the Direct Marketing Association. When I was there, it was on a revenue basis, was the world's largest marketing association, bigger than IAB and 4As and ANA at that point. So I have lots of experience at the C level as a chairman and as CEO. And we realized that at mid-sized organizations, C-level executives, CEOs, CMOs, CFOs don't necessarily have the appropriate support that they need. So if you're Procter & Gamble, if you're Unilever, if you're Ford, you can go to a WPP Omnicom agency and get the best talent in the world dedicated to your business. But if you're even a $1 billion, $5 billion business, you can't necessarily get the appropriate kind of attention that you need at a high enough strategic level and an executional level. Ultimately, if you're a mid-sized organization, you end up working with some degree of project managers. So we felt that we would do something different. We call it a C2C level. So we work directly with founders, chairmen, C-level executives, and understand their business with depth and give them high-level advice and then carry the strategic advice through an executional level as well. And we think that makes a big difference. We think the world is moving incredibly fast, and there's a requirement to understand businesses far better than in years past. It was easy in the 1970s to understand what Coca-Cola is and what Gillette razor is. But business, even if you're in Gillette razors, even if you're a massed product like that, you have to understand the nuances of distribution, of technology, consumer behavior like you've never known before. So we think that being closer to a client's business is really important. The C2C model is unique.
So there's probably a comfort level for the C-suite to be dealing with you on like a peer-to-peer level. Yes?
Well, definitely. Look, it's complicated to be a C-level executive sometimes, to be the smartest person in the room. Sometimes if you're running an organization, you may have founded it 10, 20, 30 years ago. And sometimes to get an outsider perspective and to reveal what you don't know is easier for somebody who's been there and done that than, in fact, doing it within your organization with people depending on you to understand what does the new technology, what does this disruption mean? What does the global pandemic mean for our business? How are we going to operate through that? So to have somebody else who's been there and done that is a comforting factor for many of these people.
I think that's a great point. I do so many of these episodes about the industry, and I'm constantly feeling, how am I going to ask him questions? I know you to be a person who explains things really well. You've helped me out, and I definitely see how you would be a trusted source to your clients. So I want to talk about your clients because I don't know what you set out to be with Rung-UP in terms of who your target clients were, but I do know that you've evolved to a fairly mission-driven kind of clientele. Tell me about that and what were the origins of your interests in pro-social?
Well, look, there's too much hatred and racism in the world. There are too many people without adequate health care. There are too many homeless people and homeless families that people don't give enough credence to or pay enough attention to it. There's too little inspiration in today's world and too little focus on righteous individuals. There's too little attention paid to the existential threat of climate change. And these are all issues that we as an agency are dedicated to. During my career, I've sold crayons and credit cards and underwear and countless other products and services. But honestly, I have less patience for those kind of products and those kinds of services now. I mean, there are too many critical issues that the world has to contend with. And if I can apply my skill set to solving any of those, life is more meaningful. Having said that, I'm an altruist and a capitalist. I want to do good while I'm doing well.
So was that part of your intention with starting Rung-UP? Or, that's part of your DNA. Did you just, sort of migrate to more of a pro-social clientele? Or did you set out to be a sort of nonprofit focused, cause-oriented agency?
Look, the beauty of running your own business is you make your own choices. I'm not a kid. When I was early in my career, I worked for an agency, a terrific agency. I worked there for 3 months and they said, "You're so good, we're going to put you on our largest account," which was a cigarette account. And I'm, I don't know, 22 years old. And I thought, well, wait a second, I don't want to sell cigarettes, but everybody in the agency was selling cigarettes and they thought it was a fabulous thing to do. So, you don't want to do that now. And if you've got a choice to control your destiny, you want to do things that align your personal passion with your professional skills. So it's not like we don't do commercial work. We do. We do commercial work for terrific clients who we have wonderful respect for. And many commercial and successful organizations do great things for their employers, for their customers, and for the world at large. And we're happy to do that as well. But, if, as I said, we can do well for the world and make a living at the same time, it's even better.
I'm going to just give a little shout out here. I mentioned your DNA, and I should explain that. You're the son of a mensch. Your dad, Howard Kimmel, really put a lot of his lifeblood and his personal finances into building fair housing, affordable housing. And what is he, 95 now? And he's still conscientious and concerned about that. And there's a couple of buildings in his name, right?
Yes. Look, it's the importance of being a role model. So my father was a great role model. He retired theoretically at 60 and took some of the little money he had and he started a foundation to build housing for people in need. He worked for the New York State Department of Housing and he realized there's a critical need. And that's what he did with his life. And somehow he coalesced, an incredible team of talented people to give so much of their time and energy and not get paid. And I used to always go, Dad, how do you do that? I got 1,000 people working for me. And they, and he used to tell me a joke. Somebody would say, how many people you got working for you? And the answer was, I don't know, about 30%. And, and that's what I used to feel. I got 30% of people working for me, and he's got, all of these super talented lawyers and architects giving their time because there's a more noble cause. And I think I learned a little something.
Oh, that's excellent. And you also teed me up kind of well because, to use the cliche of the John Wanamaker line, I don't know which 50% of my ad money is working. So let's talk about some of the tactics and what works for your client. That was a really good segue, right?
Great segue.
Come on now. No, I seriously want to know what you've been using to do what for your clients, and any specifics you can share would be great.
Sure. So I grew up as an accountable marketer. We used to call it direct marketing. And to understand the sort of return on investment and heavy amount of direct response television work and direct mail work. And we used to, look at the results. But to run social media campaigns on a global basis in multiple languages and make optimizations in real time and have, machine learning algorithms deciding what ads to give to what person at what time of day across what social media platform is just a fascinating dynamic that to this day I'm obsessed. And what we're seeing right now is with the global pandemic, consumer behavior is changing radically. So when a country opens up and a country closes down, the cost per thousand that you're paying is radically different and depending on the category. So it's very different if you're selling clothes and nobody's going out as opposed to goods and services for things that people want to consume at home. So the global pandemic is creating fascinating dynamics for return on investment decisions through social media. Claude Hopkins, who wrote The Science of Advertising, said his hobby was not golf, it was work. And he was the first, accountable marketer. And for me, this is just a sport. How did we do yesterday? How are we doing this hour? How's Instagram doing? Where's stories? Does Facebook still work for young people? All of those things are happening for this product, this set. It's a wonderful sport. Having said that, I'm just totally fascinated with TikTok. I mean, TikTok is just an unbelievable platform, in my opinion. The algorithmic decisioning about what content to present to you based on your behavior a nanosecond before is just unbelievable. I don't think there's anything like it. And it's really early days, but I can't wait to figure out TikTok on a commercial basis.
I also know that you really leverage social media a lot overall. And I'll also point out that through that, you created a remarkable campaign using the hashtag #WeRemember. And you even feature, the Pope on your homepage as an example, who showed off the #WeRemember hashtag. Can you talk about that and how that came about, what the thinking was, and how you're also replicating that for other clients using social?
A few years ago, we were hired by an organization called the World Jewish Congress that represents Jewish communities in 100 countries around the world. They were wonderfully politically connected. If they wanted a meeting with Obama or Merkel or terrorists from the UN or Putin or Trump, they could get you that meeting in the minute. But at the same time, they, like many older nonprofits, weren't that connected to young people, and they wanted to make sure they were relevant in social media. And we decided that there was an opportunity to address racism around the world and address the fact that the Holocaust, which is the defining in Jewish history and human history, was starting to be forgotten. And it was 72 years had passed since the end of World War II. And we thought it would be helpful for the world to remember to a different degree. And so we ran a campaign called We Remember, and we asked people all around the world to do something very simple and just write a sign that says "We Remember" and post their picture. Ultimately, by the third year, we had reached over 2 billion people around the world. The interesting thing was there was still a great deal of interest in it, but hearing the stories of Holocaust victims and why the Holocaust is relevant to racism today resonated tremendously. So we had over 100 million views for these videos with these Holocaust survivors, and they explained for the world how it touched their heart and why we have to be cognizant of our behavior. It really did sort of inspire us to know that you can touch a whole lot of people and at least you can get them to think. You might only be doing a 2-minute video, but for those 2 minutes, people have understood something. I think we can't do that enough. I do think in many ways we're in a fight between good and evil. And it is our responsibility in this generation to do what we can to make sure the world is as righteous, as responsible as possible. I mean, it's a lesson my father, my parents taught me to do unto others. I mean, that's what we have to do. And I don't think that enough of the world understands modesty, giving back, love, caring, consideration. And so we got a whole lot of work to do. And I haven't forgotten. I remember.
Amen. Your creative vision, your branding expertise, and your passion might have been what led a couple of politicians to ask you for some advice here and there. So call it brand positioning or whatever you want, but what advice would you publicly give? Here's your platform to anyone running in this election. What would you advise a politician to do now?
So in 1992, the political advice was, it's the economy, stupid. And now suddenly I joke, it's the stupid economy. Massive unemployment, underemployment, economic stress. And I think we're really seeing too little empathy for the plight of real people. And the struggle out there is monumental for so many families. I think 40% of families don't have $400 or didn't have $400 before the pandemic of available money. So now you got to think about what the state of the circumstance is. In 2018, healthcare was an important issue. And now I think human health in the broader sense is central to almost everyone's consciousness at every waking moment. And what's my advice to politicians? I want them to be human. I also think it's important that the right humans decide that they want to be politicians. And I think in many circumstances, we're seeing, different kind of people who are righteous and who are respected by their community and have the right instincts that are wanting to be politicians. And if in fact you're the right human being and you are yourself, and I think you can acknowledge your shortcomings and acknowledge the nature of the job. We always talk about transparency. Maybe Pete Buttigieg sort of, did a great job of, here's this relatively small town mayor, and the world came to appreciate him. And he did extraordinarily well by saying to the world, here's who I am.
So that was his brand.
That was his brand, and his brand was real.
How has advertising for politicians changed? Let me ask it that way.
So in the 2020 cycle, there's going to be about $1.3 billion spent on digital. That's 50% greater than it was in the 2016 cycle. So
and that's without Michael Bloomberg.
That's Michael Bloomberg, yes. And funny. And about 60% of those dollars are going to Facebook. So the Facebook platform is just miraculous from a marketing and targeting and interest-based level. I'm not making a judgment about all of the issues that the Facebook is having. So, television still gets more dollars than digital, significantly more dollars than digital. Radio's in an interesting place right now because as of this moment, people are not commuting to the same degree. But all channels are important. And the behavior of individuals by demographic is important to understand also. So television and radio, which, tend to reach older people, are also aligned with the people who tend to vote more. So there will be record levels of advertising, of dollars spent in this political cycle. All advertisers have to be cognizant of that because the cost per thousand, obviously, in this political cycle is going to be higher than previously. But, micro targeting is hugely helpful, and having the overall sort of brand represented in mass advertising still has its role as well.
Well, I'm actually really interested in that because, again, you come from the traditionally direct marketing, now is that performance marketing, the school of thought. So I really want to talk about Facebook. And I also really want to ask if there's still a place for some of the traditional approaches like direct mail. Discuss.
They all have their role. They all have their sort of place. From a political perspective, mail is not as important as it was. It used to be the best way to target individuals based on knowledge and behavior. You can't touch social, it can't touch the Facebook, Instagram platform anymore, and it's expensive to do. It still has its role to reach certain people. It is a breakthrough medium. We use mail actually on a B2B side, high impact direct mail, getting a thing, a smart watch in the mail to get a high level executive's attention to then say something relevant about data and information. And then following up with a phone call thereafter is hugely powerful. And we've seen over 50% ability conversion to get people to a meeting, by sending these high impact direct mails and getting the salespeople to follow up with a call thereafter. Of course, that's when people used to work in offices. Now,
Yeah.
can you send that piece to their home?
Yeah. And sending the smartwatch doesn't scale, so to speak. I didn't get one, Larry. Darn.
So,
okay.
The complication for any marketer these days is, how many channels do I do? They all have their place, and then how do I divide my time and energy? We're doing a global campaign for a client, upcoming and, across social media platforms. And we're making a decision about TikTok because TikTok's a whole different animal. We know we're not going to get the same kind of return on investment. It's going to take a whole lot of time for us to build what's right for the brand in that channel. And so then how much time and energy is it worth, given that it's not going to deliver that much? And I think that that's indicative of what every marketer has to decide. Do I do a mail campaign? How important is it? If I'm a brand, if I'm making it up Geico and I spend, whatever it is, $1.6 billion every year on advertising, and I've exhausted every channel, I've got to go for every nook and cranny to find that other sort of 2% improvement. But if in fact I'm an entrepreneurial organization, I don't have much money, better to do the couple of channels that can deliver the best return on investment and do them great.
So I know that as an empathetic, caring, golden rule kind of person, you're probably challenged with advising your clients to be on Facebook. And yet there's probably, as you said, nothing better for targeting and efficiency and that kind of thing. What do you do? As the commercial used to say, what do you do?
Look, I think everybody has to make their own sort of decisions about every channel. I mean, and Twitter's been a little bit more aggressive, but the percentage of bots on Twitter is monumental. Mm-hmm. And you look at some famous politicians, how many real followers they have on Twitter, but there are lots of people gaming that system as well. So if in fact you want to do good things, do you disregard the distribution channel that's arguably the most efficient, effective way to reach those people and do something good? It's a decision that all organizations have to make. I could tell you personally, and in each circumstance, we advise our specific clients on what to do and how to do it, given their circumstances and how much good they'll do for the world. Facebook is, got $70 billion worth of revenue. And even some of the big advertisers, it's a drop in the bucket. I think about 80% of Facebook's advertising dollars are from small advertisers. So even you take a behemoth, it doesn't really change the behavior, at least economically, but it does elevate the profile to say, Facebook, can you be better? And they can be.
Yeah, that sounds like that's sort of your through line messaging, sort of inspiring. I won't say be best. I would say really
be better than average.
Yeah. Be better, be a mensch like your dad. So just to kind of wrap it up a little bit, you being a good student of human nature, like, how do you see the ripple effect being both for consumer buying habits and then how brands are going to pivot and respond to that prediction? It's a tough question, Larry.
It is. Look, I mean, I'm viewing everything in a world of pandemic and post-pandemic. And I think that there are going to be two phenomenons in a post-pandemic world, whatever that is. I mean, if there is a vaccine or, it seems to die out, then I think that some people are going to go out and party like it's 2019. It's funny, right?
Yeah, it is. And
and then others are going to continue the newfound joys of home life, of home cooking, of binge watching, of Christmas dinner via Zoom. I don't know what the percentages are of how many people's new lives are going to be forever changed. Is it, is it 40%? Is it 10%? But the percentage of the world's population that will have new behavior is monumental. Here's the other thing that I'm so fascinated right now is that I don't know if there's been a time in the course of human history where so many people on this planet were simultaneously impacted by common occurrences. So, whether that means concerned about my health, my personal health, and the health of my family on an ongoing minute-to-minute basis, it means the newfound challenges of working at home or new economic stress. When TV was a phenomenon, a true phenomenon in the 1950s and 1960s, it was because it was mass marketing. It was because we had commonality, because the country that existed then, the population all had common experiences and all were watching, I Love Lucy, Ed Sullivan show. And now, for the first time in this fragmented, long-tail world of ours, we've got this common experience that runs across races, that runs across geographies, that runs across every aspect of humanity. And there will be people, there will be companies, there will be organizations and entrepreneurs who will be more successful because of those sets of circumstances than ever before. And it's more than just Zoom.
It's great. And hopefully it's more than, the guys selling knockoff untested, antibody tests. Hopefully better people will prevail.
And you know what? I decided to do this podcast without my mask on.
Thank you.
I thought it would be better.
Please don't exhale. So I'll leave it here with asking you for advice. You gave some advice to politicians on branding. What about for, companies who need to do better at bringing in more of a multicultural team? And what about for young people who have just lost their opportunity to easily break into the industry without, office hours?
The world needs you. Every human being has a unique perspective. Every human being at every level, young or old, is different. And we are a multicultural society. You can't sort of understand the reality of someone else's human experience without really having walked in their shoes. Tammy Duckworth just said to Tucker Carlson the other day, walk a mile in my shoes, and she lost her legs in war. And I think it's important. So I think it's very important for us to bring in people. And I think every person has unique talents. For every young person, I would say knowledge is power. I would say data beats opinion. I would say done is better than perfect. And just make a life while you're making a living.
I love that line. Make a life while you're making a living too. So, Larry, in the spirit of singing on my podcast and you coming from a direct marketing background, I will end it by saying, call me anytime, call me. No, not a good choice.
It's good. It's good. I'm glad we didn't ask for a duet because
take the Rung-UP, get the phone to ring.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
I like that.
Stretch.
I like that. I see a commercial message there.
You were a little startled by that, I know. I like to keep you on your toes. All right. So for Insider Interviews, I'm E.B. Moss, and you've been listening to Larry Kimmel of Rung-UP and many other illustrious career stops along the way. And thank you so much for listening. I hope that you will, as they say, rate, subscribe, review. Also now on Pandora, finally. So thank you, Pandora, for getting us on your platform. So Insider Interviews is available everywhere. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, AB. You're wonderful.